Hello everyone, it's just Arne here again with another video. Thank you for tuning in. It's really great to have you. Hey, so I got a question the other day to tell a little bit more about me and about how I got into customs in the first place. And I've done a video already before. You can check out. It explains why I love customs and why I love to be called a customs practitioner because, and I gave the reasons why I think that is just a wonderful profession to be in. So today, I thought I'll share a little bit more about me and about how I got into customs in the first place, and I got to be the customs practitioner that I am today. So my journey actually started already in 2000, around 2000s. I did my undergraduate degree, which tells you how old I am. Yeah, so I was already fascinated back then of why the European Union is rotating in presidencies, right? So it was the French presidency, the Spanish presidency. And also I learned about all these really complicated EU laws, agricultural law, and there was trade law as well. And I started to understand how the European Union works, which is a benefit, I guess. I decided after my studies to go into the EU Commission and be a trainee. So I did that. I was a trainee for satellite navigation Galileo system, and I got into working with other countries. So how would Galileo work in Argentina with commercially, with cattle identification and tracking as they roam around the fields, etc. And then internship came to an end, and the question came, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, what is there? Because everybody was going for agriculture or foreign affairs. Is there a policy area that is less well known and that actually is really exciting, but you don't see that? So I was happy with that because Galileo was one of those policies. Galileo hadn't been developed and it wasn't really operational, but I found it very fascinating and rewarding to be a trainee at the European Commission. So they said, well, the one thing that is so geeky and that nobody needs is customs. And I said, why don't you need them? Why don't you need customs? And they said, well, we're in the European Union. There are no borders. I can move from Belgium to Germany with no problem. And I said, well, what about further field? What about America, sending goods to America? And this is where I started to click for me. So off I go to my first Customs Code Committee meeting. Actually, so there's a consultative body called the Trade Contact Group. And I was part of a trade association, and I was lucky enough to work for a trade association, European Trade Association, which I'm very fond of, but never mind. And they were members of the Trade Contact Group, and that's how I got into the main trade representative body, the one that liaises with the EU Commission, the Directorate General DG Taxud, on customs policies. And from 2004 onwards, 5 onwards, I was involved in developing of the authorized economic operator, the security amendment of the community customs code, the modernized customs code, and eventually the union customs code. When I say involved, I mean I was following and I was speaking at the trade contact group, and I was informing my members and developed position papers and the likes of it, and you know, had constant contact with the European Commission, and that improves, so I believe, lawmaking because it gets the laws much closer to what the economic reality is on the ground. So did that for 2011, then got a call from a quite large consultancy, one of the big customs consultancies in the UK. And they said, would you like to come and work for us and help us build the AEO program, help our clients with the customs questions? So 2011, off I went to do consultancy. So from trade representation, from industry supporting, policy analyzing and commenting, being a representative and voice de facto towards the European Commission, I changed into the consultancy role. And that meant now advising companies on a practical level as to how to be compliant, but also how to save costs. And that was a very rewarding experience. I had 2 consultancies employment, and very large consultancy businesses. And they were both very different experiences and very rewarding. One was more challenging than the other, but overall, I learned a lot. And what I did learn the most, I guess, was how do you explain something so complicated as customs in ways that people that don't do this every day but are impacted by it can understand it. And more importantly, what are the steps that you need to take to be compliant and save customs duty? And so the combination of being able to speak to officials in government and businesses at the same time, liaising between the two, is a perfect recipe for successful consultancy and advisory. One doesn't really go without the other. So the one thing that was missing in my CVs, having done that for a while and being a consultant, was the question of technology and automation. And the question, because that was a growing trend and continues to be a growing trend. And so the question was, do we still need humans to lodge a customs declaration? Or can the computer do everything? So I wanted to explore that. And so I joined a global trade management automation company, a very significant player back then on the field of trade automation. And that was just a perfect complement. Not only did it expose me to higher management responsibilities, so no longer was I managing a team of customs people in the UK, but I was actually one of the highlights of my life. I was blessed, fortunate enough to travel to India and work with the fantastic people in that company for quite a while. And they helped me really understand the connection between technology, automation, data, and customs. And it made me understand how important accurate, complete, and timely data in customs is. So there is the third connection to the whole thing: data, customs, laws and regulations, operations on the ground, business impact, and setting up structures and procedures within business to ensure compliance. And that is the combination that makes me who I am today. So it's a deep understanding of the laws, regulations, guidances of customs in the European Union and the United Kingdom, with a good knowledge of the US as well. Don't forget that. Understanding of WCO and WTO rules. So that means basically I kind of understand how the world works in terms of customs. Also AEO, as I worked so much on the AEO system with the EU, I helped look at the WCO and had a quick stint at the WCO PSCG group, which is the de facto equivalent of the TCG. So all of that happened. And as a result of that, I was fortunate enough to create my own company in 2020 called Customs Manager. And that really was a significant moment for me. And simply why? Because it gave me the freedom to advise clients the way I felt was right. Not to look at the time all the time and say, oh my God, 45 minutes on the clock, but to take time and to explain and explain again. So that was important for me. Then also a lot of training occurred. Training I had previously done during my time at the Institute of Export and International Trade, where I was vice president, served as vice president and young president for a number of years, which was a great experience for sure. So training is something that my clients ask me to do a lot. Customs declarations, classification, origin, valuation. So that needed to be in the mix as well. Increasingly, clients ask me to help them stay up to date. They would be flooded by the amount of information that would come out of Brussels and out of London. And so a trade intelligence service was born. And finally, of course, if I'm going to advise you, then I should also do the clearance. So these 4 things became then the cornerstone of my business, right? Customs advice and consultancy, training, trade intelligence, so this update service, and then customs brokerage. And I could tell you 3 years during the pandemic, we started, post-Brexit, we started. And ever since then, it's been a blessing because you get to work with so many different great people, colleagues from industry. So I collaborate quite a lot with other customs practitioners. There are projects where many people are needed. It's not just a one people thing. So with the great collaboration that I have with my friends and colleagues from the profession, we get to just add more people to bigger projects and then work collectively and collaboratively on these great projects together. And that is just so rewarding because you can understand where other people's coming from and they have a different perspective. And that is really, really key. And then also you get to do a lot of fun things in terms of training. So if there is a new training or an event happening, so by the time of this recording, we're talking about CBAM a lot. So the carbon border tax adjustment mechanism. So I'll just create a new training, right? Because people need it. So why wouldn't I? And then the trade intelligence basically means by producing this update, this weekly update, I get to stay up to date. I get to know what's going on, and that's just so rewarding. And customs brokerage also is interesting because it shows the difference between a broker who just pushes data through without thinking, a person, not a broker, a person who is interested in volumes and just get through the data, and people like myself who care so deeply about this that they would actually sense check what they put into the customs declaration, and would then go to the client and say, hey, you sure that's correct? Like this value looks a little off. And when they ask why, I'd actually take the time to talk them through it. Sure, all of this takes time, and who has time, right? But then that's what makes this different. I cannot just push numbers through because I'm a customs practitioner. So as a customs practitioner, I care about the profession, I care about the business, I care about compliance, I care about cost savings, and I care about my customers having the best possible border crossing experience that they can. And that usually is smooth and no issues. So the least you hear from it, the more successful it was. So you asked for it. You asked what my story is regarding customs, and there you have it. I just gave it to you. I hope it was interesting, and thank you for watching again. And if you have any questions or you want me to discuss the topic that you're interested in, why don't you send me a message on socials, and then I'll cover it next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.